Welcome to Outside the Frame, a podcast for wedding industry professionals to learn how to be better humans in business and life.
We're your hosts,
Caitlin of Skywater Photo and Film,
and Kaylin of Wandering Wildflower Films. We're here to create a supportive and meaningful space for diverse voices to discuss social and personal issues that impact wedding pros.
Our hope is that collectively, we can bring more of ourselves and the things that matter to the forefront of our work in the wedding industry and give all of us the courage to focus our business around who we are and what we care about.
We're so glad you're joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back. We're stoked that people are here. Today we are talking to Liz. She is the owner and storyteller behind Embr Films. She's a fantastic human, fantastic filmmaker, and she just has really been focusing on story-driven films and really looking at filmmaking in a different way than I think is more mainstream. We're going to dive in. Liz, we're just so stoked that you're here. This is so cool.
I'm stoked to be here. It feels really cool to be interviewed.
It's going to be fun. We'll just dive in, start just understanding why you chose Embr Films, like where that name came from. I know you have some history behind that. So I'd love to hear about why you chose Embr Films, and we'll go from there.
2021 and 2022, I just really knew that I wanted to change my business name. It just used to be my name, Elizabeth Mae Films, because that's what everyone is doing with their photography. Is just like first name, middle name, photography, first name, middle name, films. And as I started to get more into and settle into my style of filmmaking, the more it just felt like I didn't need to be the forefront and what I was putting, like, I don't know. I just didn't feel good about putting my name at the end of films, just like slapping Elizabeth Mae Films on the end. I wanted it to be something that my couples could really connect with, feel like they were a part of something, feel like they were part of something bigger. Because long term in the future, I really do want to host events for all my couples and just take over a plot of BLM land and go camping and have all my couples meet each other. Because I feel like the people that I'm attracted to are also going to be attracted to everyone else. And I just think that it would be really cool to build a community among all the people that have these incredible love stories and all these common interests. I wanted to be able to create a space for that, and I just didn't feel like it would work under Elizabeth Mae. I kept bouncing around with different name ideas, and I kept doing the blank and blank names because that was also kind of trendy.
It's still trendy. It's what everybody
It's still very trendy.
Yes, very much so.
And every single one I came up with was already taken, and I don't understand how that worked because they were some of the most random words I was smooshing together, and they were taken by other videographers. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how is this even possible? So I was at the very beginning stages of interviewing brand designers, and I was just going to make a mood board on Pinterest just to help give some visuals, give some ideas, and I kept pinning visuals of campfires and sparks flying out and embers flying. And I started to think, like, every time I go camping and we have a campfire and I'm surrounded by my friends, it's when the embers are dying that the conversation gets really deep and real. We're not wanting to go to bed quite yet. And we're just staying up just that little bit longer watching the embers burn. And I was like, oh, what if I do Embr Films? And I looked it up, and there is technically an Embr Films in the UK. They do commercial and branding stuff. But if I drop the second E and just do EMBR Films, that was available. So I bought the domain that night. This was also like at midnight, by the way. I do some great thinking in the middle of the night. Bought the domain, got the Instagram handle, and I knew that was the direction that we were going. So I ended up having my branding done by Christy Black Creative, who is also a very inclusive brand designer. She loves to work with just people that have deeper messages. She was the most amazing person to work with. She does all kinds of events like brand camps to help people fall more in love with their businesses. She gave me a document that went through, like, I don't know, dozens and dozens of questions. It was like 5 pages when she sent it to me, and it was probably like 20 something pages when I sent it back. And I cried a few times working on this. It was just so in depth about who I was as an individual, what my business stood for. And she sent me the first round of my logo and my brand. And I was basically like, no revisions. I love it. I'm going to get this tattooed on me. This feels more like a personal brand than a business brand. And I did get it tattooed on me.
Love. So cool.
Which she thought was wild. Once we finalized everything, I got this tattoo as kind of my reward for doing the rebrand. It was something that I had always wanted. And then I got that on the same day and I showed her. She's like, whoa, you actually did it. I said, yeah, I did it. Like, this is the coolest logo I have ever seen. And it feels so personal. It feels so intentional. And I'm in love with my business and what it stands for. And so that was beginning of 2022. And that just kind of launched like my whole life into a different territory.
I think it's so cool having done kind of a similar process of like really thinking through in depth what I wanted my own brand to be. And it kind of cracked me up because I had done that maybe a year right before you did. And we're on like the similar like elemental theme of like you've got the fire, I've got the water. Like it just cracks me up. And I love it that like,
Yeah.
once you take the time to really think through what you want your brand to stand for, I think it can actually make it more personal, more unique, and less about slapping your name on something.
What is kind of cool here is we got fire sign, we got your water sign, and then Kaylin,
Earth.
your earth. So now we just
Oh,
need
man.
now we just need someone else on the podcast with an air sign in their business, and then we have everyone.
Well, technically, I do still have sky in the name, so we
Okay,
might
yeah. So you're
sort of
both.
have all four on
Yeah.
one podcast right now. That's
There we
pretty
go.
great.
Which works because you do photo and video, Caitlin. So like it all evens out.
That's true.
Okay, so then
That's
the
true.
question is which is the water and which is the air, photo versus video?
I'd have to think about that for a bit, see if I can come up with an answer. I don't know. Well, I guess air would probably be more video for me, I think, with sound. I mean, I guess like water does have a sound to it, but I think that you use air to speak, to sing, to, read your vows to each other. And there's also a lot of wind rustling in the trees and stuff on video days and stuff. So yeah, I think that at least that's what first comes to mind.
We're gonna go with the gut reaction.
Okay.
I love it.
That's what it is.
I'd love to dive into kind of talking about that transformation. So you talked about how you kind of really aligned with your own business. And then once you aligned your business with you, how that evolved your own life and your own choices.
This is a big question.
It was not a planned question either.
Diving right in here. Yeah, like we said, it's called Outside the Frame. Dive right in, get deep.
So really going through the branding process, especially with what Christy took me through, it was a lot of personal discovery. And through that, I just kind of realized like, oh, I am actually a really cool person. There is a lot of depth to me. My marriage was also really bad at that time. And I had just kind of settled with the idea of like, I'm just going to be in a garbage marriage forever. I grew up really religious. And so in the back of my mind, divorce really wasn't an option. And so it's kind of normal to see people in bad relationships and with people that they don't really get along with stick it out for the sake of kids, satisfying general church culture or whatever. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, if my marriage is just going to be awful and I'm going to be miserable, I have to find ways to have my own happiness. And a lot of that was through my business. And I actually felt like it was harder to film weddings when I was in my marriage because I would be hearing these things that couples were saying to each other and thinking in the back of my mind, why can't I have that? Why doesn't my husband speak to me that way? Why can't I have this kind of love? And so there was a lot of envy that was brought into the day. And it wasn't like it made my work bad, but I can see a stark contrast between when I was feeling envious of my couples and then when I relate to my couples more. After my divorce and after we separated, I was just like, cool, I can finally experience this kind of love that I've been craving. So I know we're going to go into that a little bit more later. And the question was about the transformation, but it was really just like, I need to lean into myself. I need to find peace and value in myself, excluding how my husband made me feel about myself and ex-husband. He's the ex. We don't have him anymore.
Yay!
So I just kind of went on my own journey and just left him behind and really started to be true to myself for the first time.
Yeah, and I feel like when you finally are aligned with yourself, everything else falls into place.
It absolutely does.
I also went through a divorce, and it was hard for me to go to these weddings and like pretend that I was happy and just like accept that this was the reality. And now that I've found my place as a human, I think that I've also found my place as a filmmaker. As we discover ourselves, as we get more comfortable with who we are, everything else aligns and it feels so much better.
And that was something that you and I connected on, Kaylin, because your ex had taken the business and you were just like, I want to revive this, but I'm not sure how. And now look at what you're doing. It's so good.
Now I have a podcast. Like, what?
I know.
What's happening?
Insane.
Yeah. So I just really love that. And thank you for sharing that vulnerability with us. And that's what this is all about, is to have these real conversations. And yes, we have specific questions, but also it's a space for us just to have a conversation.
Kaylin and I have kind of talked about this a lot, especially when we're like looking at the industry as a whole and the status of other educational tools and podcasts out there. And especially from like a filmmaking perspective, it's very male heavy. If we're all here, like being more vulnerable, being more open about who we are, what we want our brands to stand for, what would you say is like your perspective as far as like how it feels to be a woman in this wedding filmmaking industry?
Hot take. I do feel like women are stronger filmmakers because we do bring more emotion to our filmmaking. I think of Catherine with Blink Films, although she is closing that down and
I
stepping
know,
into
it
a new
breaks my
stage.
heart.
I know. She's amazing and I love her filmmaking, but she's stepping into a new stage of motherhood and exploring other avenues of creativity. She's one of the filmmakers that I've seen that I'm just like, this is a girl who gets it. And most other women that I see, just we get it. We have been watching fairy tales and Disney movies, and I do feel like our love for films and romance has influenced a lot of what we do, where I don't really feel like a lot of men have that kind of influence.
Well, and I wonder how much of that too is also coming back to like what society puts on us, right? Like
Yeah.
as girls, yeah, it
Mhm.
is like, oh, let's watch a fairy tale and all that sort of thing, and then God forbid, a boy share his feelings or
Mhm.
cry about something that he cares about. So
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that too just stems from like naturally people kind of telling boys to suppress a lot of that. I'd be kind of curious, like how we might be able to shift that over time to get men to be more open and vulnerable, more in tune with reading emotions on the wedding day as they're filming something. That's what differentiates a great film from an average film, is that extra element of realness and vulnerability
Absolutely.
and emotion.
And that was something I had to learn. Like in my early filmmaking, I was so concerned about getting the right shot, making sure the composition was perfect. As I was going through in editing, I was realizing I was cutting off key moments. And that took a little while to shift, to get away from making sure the shot was perfect. And a lot of that was getting rid of the gimbal. I stopped using a gimbal and I go handheld.
Same.
Same. I'm also handheld.
It forces me to actually pay attention to what's going on camera and what's being said versus what's my shot, what's my movement.
And
And
is a movement even needed? Like I have
yeah,
to remind myself that all the time. It looks cool in certain cinematic moments, but is it necessary every time?
I mean, look at Wes Anderson. A lot of his shots are static,
Yeah.
and it does take more from us to be able to direct through that shot, which is tricky if you're trying to be a little bit more fly on the wall documentary style. But there's more power to like directing moments within the frame instead of just letting your shot be the most interesting thing that's going on.
Yeah, and I think that also comes to like photography as well, because it depends on who you're working with when you are the videographer. Like you only have
Absolutely.
so much ability to change what's going on. So if the photographer is very focused on, oh, I just want this pretty shot, and then we're going to move to this spot, and then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and there's no space for real raw emotion, it's also hard for us. So then we lead to the, oh, well, we're going to do a movement because they're statically standing there for photography, or you only have 5 minutes. That's why I think most of us are in the elopement industry, because there's space for the couple to actually be and to
Mhm.
enjoy time together and to have authentic moments. Whereas with a wedding, oftentimes you have 5-10 minutes with a couple to do portraits, and then that's it. Like that's all you get. The rest of the time is with everybody else, which is great because you get great shots with the speeches and all of that. There's emotion with that. But oftentimes with a larger wedding, there's so little time with just the couple that there isn't really always space to let them move through a moment or have an experience together, that does come out really, really nicely in film.
Yeah, I definitely have a different approach for traditional weddings versus elopements in how I film and frame things. And it's because of just that reason. We don't get a lot of time. Um, And so, like, my films where I have traditional weddings, they are more people and guest driven,
Mm-hmm.
and more of the connection. I try to encourage my couples to join in on cocktail hour, and I get a lot of their interactions with their guests. And it's less on the romantic side of things, which really works for that style and that moment. And then I get to have more creativity and make it look like a romance movie when I do elopements. And so that's also really fun that I get to play with both.
Yeah, it definitely is an added bonus to be able to explore different types of days. And I mean, every couple is different. Just because you come into the day with a certain moment, it might change or shift as the day goes. And that's the beauty of it. We get to come into it and notice the emotion instead of just, oh, I have to formulate my day and get 5 minutes of this and 5 minutes of this. It's really thinking, how are people interacting? It's more intentional, like Catherine has talked about, like intentional filmmaking of
Mhm.
step back and look what's happening in the room, what's the emotion, and then capturing that. I don't know, I've seen certain males specifically, not this is only male, they get the same shot at every wedding. And it's the
Mhm.
Very
same
templated.
poses. It is
Yeah.
very templated. It's almost scientific, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Instead of it being emotional, it's like data driven and scientific.
Well, what's
Yeah.
interesting to me too is actually I've noticed more recently that even videographers, female videographers are doing this if they're in the more high-end, super luxury type of niche as
Mhm.
well. And it all seems to about out, very editorial, very glamour shots and stuff like that, which is interesting to me because it's, wedding days have an experience to them, especially if there's a lot of guests. But I find it very odd, for lack of a better word, of why are you trying to make it like this huge production rather than what the core is about? Like why is everybody coming together? It makes me a little curious too about we're all three essentially in slightly different phases of our lives at this moment. Liz, you've gone through a divorce. Now you're kind of like seeking this whole other life that maybe for a bit it didn't seem like that was even realistic or possible for you. And then Kayla, now you're planning your own wedding. You're, and I'm kind of curious like how maybe like going through that like a second time from like a slightly different perspective, how that might be shaping your work, how that might be like shaping your own future plans for like weddings or relationships moving forward.
I do see more and more people just fitting into formulas and just kind of getting the same thing over and over again. I think what makes filmmaking interesting for me is that I do try to approach every wedding a little bit differently. And like, I can't do the same thing over and over again. If I make the same film back to back, I'm going to go insane. And I've never wanted that for my business. So even when it comes to edits, I try to start each edit differently every single time. So like if I start with a first look on one edit, I'm not going to start with the first look on my next edit. And I'm going to find a different way to open up my next edit because it needs to stay fresh for me. And I think it also needs to stay fresh for other people. And I get that comment a lot from couples that do get on calls with me and they're like, we want to hire you. And we love that, none of your films feel exactly the same. Where a lot of other videographers we've looked at, like they all open this with the same drone shot, then it goes to a detail shot. It starts with the officiant talking. And it's just
The
very,
dress hanging on a window. Like
I actually do love a dress shot laying on a bed. I think that one's really cute because that's where it would just naturally be. And then same
Mm-hmm.
thing, just like chaos details sitting on a dresser instead of a perfect flat lay. That's totally not answering the question that
No,
you
that's okay.
asked,
No,
but I
yeah,
wanted to
touching on a
touch on
variety
that.
of your approach to a wedding day stems from how you see the world. And so a lot of what we've been trying to make this podcast about is kind of merging those two of like how we see the world, how we bring our personal lives to our business. Because I feel like everything that we do in the wedding industry is very different from 99% of other industries. It is very
Absolutely.
personal. It is very unique. And even if your brand isn't named after you anymore, you still are bringing a certain piece of yourself to
Mhm.
your brand and your work. I love that couples have even told you that they get a sense of, oh, this is different. Maybe they can't pinpoint exactly what it is,
Mhm.
but I like that.
I don't want to get bored with what I do. And so that's also how I've been able to do this for 10 years. And I still come into each day with a sense of wonder and a sense of excitement. I get into edit. I actually love editing. I never want to outsource my editing because I love what I can create when I'm sitting here at my desk. And it's because I don't do formulas. And so, it'd be cool to hire an editor that can collaborate with me at some point and be open to hearing the storyline, the opener idea that I have, the flow that I want to see. But unfortunately, that's just not how a lot of editors work. But I never want what I do to feel canned or stuffy or repetitive. And I think because of that, like, I'm never going to get bored of what I do. I'm never going to get burnt. I mean, I get burnt out, but it's not because I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like, that's why I quit corporate. That's why I don't work a job that has me doing the same repetitive tasks, is because I can create a different day every day.
And I think that really aligns with you as a person. You're not a cookie cutter, like sit in a box, like you just not. Like the way you live your life, who you are as a person is very unique. It's very different. You're always looking for new things. I mean, you just were in Moab doing dirt biking for the first time. Like,
I
you
learned how to
know?
ride a dirt bike and I only downed it 3 times.
It was great. So, like, you're coming to these wedding days with your personality in the forefront and with your values at the forefront. And I think that is so valuable. And you're not afraid to step out of the mainstream because I think it's great. There are people that want these beautiful editorial films that are almost like you're a model and they want to be that way. They want to show up as a model and be posed and told what to do. And that's totally great. And I love that for them. And so it's like for you, that's not your personality. That's not who you are. You're not super, cut and dry and corporate or anything. You're so unique and so special. And I love that. And so I think it's just cool that that's the way that you've done your business.
It's definitely for a very specific niche of people, but I keep
Mhm.
finding my niche. And yeah, the people that like, I love all my couples. And every time I film a wedding, I'm like, wow, I don't know how the next one can be any better. And then the next one is better. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how is the next one going to be better than this? And then the next one is better. I'm like, oh my God, like, when am I just going to explode from all of this just amazing, beautiful things happening?
Do you think that really shifted once you like really owned your business with the Embr Films, changing the name, really diving into your own values? Do you think that's kind of where it shifted to be like, oh my gosh, I love every
Absolutely.
single, yeah.
Yeah. The work that I started creating in 2022, like, there is a prominent shift from the films I created in 2021 to 2022. The way that I was just focusing on human touch and connection and the way that people just look at each other was something that I never really explored before. And a lot of that, again, had to do with what I was going through in my divorce and letting go of my feelings for my ex-husband and moving on to what am I going to be able to explore and feel myself. And it's that year, 2022, everyone that hired me in 2022, my edits went out very late because after the divorce and everything started, that was the worst part of it. And trying to get through the edits and trying to fight with my depression. Everything went out very late, but I'm so grateful that all my couples were so generous and considerate, and they like, I stayed in communication with them because I never wanted them to feel like they're never going to get their films, because I know there's videographers that do that. But I was just kind of fighting for my life some days to even just get out of bed. But what I filmed and then the stories that I was able to create, even through my depression and sadness and just, yeah, going through all the stages of grief, even though I wanted it to be over, I still feel like those were some of my best edits, just from everything that I was going through. It was really, really beautiful work.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for maybe someone else that's dealing with anything? I mean, it could be divorce, it could be chronic illness, it could be a loss of a family member. Do you have any advice for someone who is going through that and still trying to be a filmmaker, photographer, what, it doesn't matter, but like how they can push through and still put out really great work, but also like deal with their own things that are going on?
First thing really is just communicating really clearly with your couples, especially in our line of work. Like, people really value vulnerability, and like, they're vulnerable with us, sharing their love stories with us, and us being vulnerable with them is also a really important thing. There are going to be people that are just not going to be understanding. I had one person for a trade job that just, she was pretty awful and was just like, I don't care what you're going through, like, this needed to happen. I'm like, there was no monetary exchange here. And I would get you being upset if I was using the footage for other things and not delivering your thing. But I was not touching this footage at all because I had paid clients before your shoot that I still haven't delivered. That aside, just communicating really clearly, but without like oversharing has been a really key thing. So I just told a lot of my couples, like, I have really been struggling to get out of bed. Like, this has been really rough for me. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm editing on the good days, but it is a struggle. I'll stay in communication with you on the progress, where you're at in line, how things are going. But just to reassure you, your footage is okay. It's beautiful. It's just really hard to tell love stories right now as I'm going through some of this. But I do have good days in here and I work like crazy on those good days. So just, yeah, clearly communicating first and foremost, because some people will just disappear off the face of the planet when they're going through stuff. It is really easy to be a total recluse, forget to respond to emails. I still struggle with that, even though I'm not going through things, but sometimes depression just, knocks up my brain and responding to emails just is not the priority. And I'm trying to remember back to how I dealt with a lot of it. Getting out of the house really helped because that was such a dark space. I got a ski pass my first winter going through my divorce. It was like the last day that I could get an icon pass. And I signed up, I bought it, and I was like, I'm going to learn how to snowboard. And I spent that whole winter up at ski resorts learning how to snowboard, falling, hurting myself quite a bit. But it was absolutely necessary to not be in that space and to do something 100% for myself. As we talked about before, like this was a year of coming into myself, finding things that I loved and I was passionate about, and doing things that didn't have anything to do with the person that I was separating from. And that was snowboarding. So that was really a key thing. Yeah, getting outside, going on walks, giving myself a lot of grace to not feel like I had to push through. Because yeah, my house is a really dark place. I lived with my ex for 6 months after we separated, and he was total dark cloud. He would be blasting music at like midnight just to piss me off so that I couldn't fall asleep. Like,
Mm.
yeah, not a good situation. So it was really bad. And I hope that no one else has to go through something like that and that like you're able to move out sooner. I think had I moved out sooner, healing and everything would have started sooner. But it just wasn't financially possible at the time. We don't really have work through the winter, and this all went down in October. I wish I would have done more journaling around that time too. I feel like that would have really helped me process what I was going through because it was all just like bouncing around in my head and I had no outlet for it. Like I was afraid to put it on paper, I think, because I thought that that would make it more real. And even to this day, that's why I don't journal a lot because I don't know, I like to think that some of those things will just disappear if I don't think about them, but that's not how any of that works. So journal your feelings, journal your thoughts. That was a key point in The Artist's Way. Have either of you done The Artist's Way?
I haven't. It's been on my list.
Okay, you should. I read through it and I didn't do everything and I kind of dropped off on doing my pages like halfway through. But when I was doing my pages, it was really great just to have like 3 pages of brain dump to just clear my brain to get into the day. And that did help me get through a slump in the fall when I started this. It just felt like taking a weight off my shoulders, starting the day. And before I got into any editing, like all the things that I was stressing about, I put it on the paper and then I was able to just move on from it and not have to worry.
Well, and so you mentioned this all kind of like happening around the same time as the rebrand. Did like your rebrand kind of launch also this whole ability to like around the same time work with like newer couples that kind of aligned with like where you wanted to head in life? And I don't know, it makes me curious, like even the edits themselves, even if it was physically, mentally hard to dive into the edits, I wonder too if they also gave you some sort of relief in that aspect of like things to look forward to in the future, things to like,
Mhm.
yeah, just, yeah, more interesting work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did the rebrand in the spring, and as we all know, people hire videographers last minute all the time. So
Okay.
I had a bunch of couples hire me last minute after the rebrand. And yeah, people felt very connected to the brand, what I stood for, where I was going. One of the women that hired me, she works in marketing and she's like, your website is top notch. Like it said everything I wanted to hear as like a brand designer and all that. It's like, woo, yay, that's exciting. So yeah, I was finding couples that were very aligned with where I wanted to go and shooting those weddings, especially the fall weddings, because that's when I was just like, I need to leave my ex-husband. Like this needs to end. I need to move on. I need to find myself more. I need to find the love that I deserve. Was amazing. Editing them was also still really good and very cathartic in some ways, even though it was hard to work on it and find the energy to work on them some days. But even like through editing, it was very cathartic. Like, Elizabeth, you do get to have this kind of love someday now. Like, you don't have to be sitting in this garbage marriage. Like, you get this.
It's like a little beacon of hope of like, hey, this is not what everybody gets. And I will be able to reach that, just because I'm in this terrible marriage right now doesn't mean I won't get this kind of love in the future.
Yeah.
And that it just exists. I feel like sometimes, I've talked with people and when you just get so used to something, it's almost like you don't even realize what else is out there, like what else is possible, right?
Yeah. And like I realized that while I was filming weddings, because I did have a lot of envy prior to 2022 and just like seeing how much these men love their wives. And like I was also filming a lot of queer weddings. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like the way lesbians love each other is so sweet. I love it.
I feel like it's so unique, right? Like it's so, yeah, in depth. It's so beautiful. It's so intense.
It's best friends, but better. Like I think of the love that I have with like my closest female friendships, but then to also have that be your partner too, like, oh my God, like they win. They have.
They literally, though, they've won the lottery.
Did that also kind of like inform your own queer journey?
Yeah, so that was also a thing that I really discovered like throughout 2022 was just it was an insane year. There was so much change, so much transformation, so much self-discovery. But yeah, 2022 is when I started to realize that I was bi. And my ex-husband was very threatened by that because he was like, "Oh my God, you could leave me for a woman." I'm like, "Dude, I could leave you for literally anybody or nobody." Like,
It's nothing to do with me being bi.
yeah.
Correct.
But he was very threatened by that for some reason. But yeah, it kind of started to come into that realization. And then I didn't really get to start to explore that until after I had separated from him and officially divorced, and I could actually feel more comfortable starting to date. I'm still hung up on a girl I went on a date with in 20. I went on like 3 dates with her in 2023. I still think about her often.
Oh, if you're
But
listening, she still wants you.
yeah. She's moved to another state, unfortunately, and she
Mm,
has another partner, and that seems to be going really well. So I'm very happy for her. But
that's good.
yeah, just a little bit of longing, but yeah.
Sometimes I think, especially while we're going through a divorce, and this is for me too, is like you almost need that love from somebody, even if it's not like a long-term love. It's nice and it's part of our healing journey to have that love and to remember, like, wow, this is real and this is for
Yeah,
me and I deserve it.
absolutely.
And has that changed how you show up in your own business as you're in your own queer journey? Has that changed, how you show up for your couples or how you just show up in your business in general?
Yeah, 100%. So, kind of on the vulnerable side. So, I mentioned earlier, like, I grew up super religious, and early on in my video journey, I was still very religious. I was filming a lot of religious weddings. I was working for a lot of people in my church still at that point. And I was getting inquiries from queer couples, and I would just say, "Oh, I'm not available," because I was so worried that I would be known as like, the gay wedding videographer because that was my upbringing. And at that time, I didn't think that it was right. And then I also had a lot of just suppressed queerness. Like, if I look back on my life, I'm just like, oh, yeah, I should have known that I was not straight way earlier in life. And so I'm really thankful at that time that I had friends that were very patient and understanding and wanted to encourage me to be more accepting of queer love. It's kind of a tough balance because there are still people that do that today. And I feel like the way that culture has shifted, it should be more accepted, but they still are like, no, I'm not going to film any gay weddings at all. I just had a lot of hesitations because I didn't want to be like, oh my gosh, if I shoot one gay wedding, then all the gay people are going to come to me. But now it's like, I want all the gay weddings, like,
You're like, that's what I want
realizing that I
now.
am a part of this community and like letting that be a prominent part of my work. I've also had gay couples come to me and they're like, you're the only videographer that prominently shows queer love on your website. Like everyone else either says that they're inclusive, but they don't show anybody. So that's also something that we need to do better as. And I've really come to realize that. So that's also been a whole journey going from being very religious, letting that be such a driving force of my business, and then shifting, being more accepting just from like, okay, I need to not be a judgmental asshole to actually being loving and supportive of this community. And so like it's a tricky thing because like you do want to out people when they are being awful human beings, but also, had I not been shown understanding from some of my closest friends through that journey, I don't know. I don't think I would still be super religious, but I had a good circle of people around me that were understanding and wanted to help guide me to being more understanding myself.
Yeah, I feel like opening up the conversation and the dialogue, I feel like that ends up having so much greater of an impact than
Hmm.
people realize. Um, and that just that alone, like not focusing on like shame and judgment and, oh, you're a terrible person because you feel this way, but more, why do you feel like, where did that come from? Is that
Hmm.
you or is that something that was taught to you?
Yeah.
Right. And just kind of exploring that and stuff. I've recently felt a lot of that as well coming out and, being able to say that I was bi in a hetero looking marriage. Right. And
Hmm.
it's so interesting to me how many people can still have this like weird sense of like, well, what does that mean? And how is that impacting things? And I was like, it doesn't. It's just me being more true to myself. And
Hmm.
that makes things better for everyone. Like, as long as we're able to be coming at our work, coming at our lives from a very honest, real, vulnerable place, I feel like that makes everybody feel more comfortable, right? And we're able to
Absolutely.
have like a real relationship. And yeah, I just feel like it also makes our work better.
Yeah, just the love and acceptance that I have for myself and for others now, again, just completely shifted my work.
And it's that coming from curiosity. Like you were never forced into it. I think no matter what side you're on, it's if someone's going to try to shove it down your throat, it's not going to happen, right? Like it's
No.
going to be pushed back. But if someone comes to you with love and understanding and curiosity of, well, why do you feel that way? Or what about this? And what about this? And
Mhm.
asking those thoughtful questions, I think it's a lot easier to meld into more acceptance of that group than somebody who's just forcing you into it.
Yeah, and I would like if I were getting married to a woman, like I would want someone that is super jazzed about my marriage and everything about me instead of someone that's just like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll do it because money is money.
I think that's huge. Like you want the people, your team, you want your vendor team to be there loving you and accepting you and supporting you, not just I need the money, so I'm going to pretend to accept it, but really at home,
Yeah.
I'm going to not be accepting of this.
Yeah, because that's going to have a total impact on how they approach the day and how they approach your edit too. Because if they're not super jazzed about what you're doing, like it's going to come through, and you don't want that for yourself, and you don't want that for anyone else either.
No, exactly. And I think as long as there's no like negative or like pain coming from, someone who isn't supportive of that group, then I think maybe it is good to be a forefront of saying, hey, I don't, I will help you and I will film it, but I'm not going to be as, it's not going to be as wholesome or as heartfelt as someone who does so fully support you. I think that that's maybe important to say, as long as they're not just like, oh, these people are terrible and queers should not exist. Like, obviously, that's not
Yeah.
okay. But
Yeah.
I think being honest with yourself and being like, yeah, I'm not comfortable with that community yet, and having the ability to be open, but not just taking their money. I think it's kind of wrong to just be like, oh, I'm going to take your
Yeah.
money because I
Yeah,
want
if
it,
anything,
not because I
it's more
support you.
respectful, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we're talking about like respect here and for yourself, for your religion, for other people. It's like I hate the secrecy and stuff, where like, I'm just going to ignore those inquiries or, yeah, all that, like just be honest and then send them to a queer photographer or
Yeah.
videographer or, somebody else that is super supportive.
It is a tricky thing because like the queer community, like they are a protected class. We are a protected class. I say we because yeah,
There are
we're
two of us
good.
here.
So like yeah, I don't want to encourage discrimination, but also like I would not have been able to film good queer wedding films, even back in 2015 when I first started. Like I was fresh out of a 6-month mission trip at that point. Like I was indoctrinated. And yeah, that is what I did a lot of was just like I don't know how to approach this with, my background and my history at this point in time, but
Mhm.
I want you to be taken care of by someone who gets it and will love you and support you.
Yeah.
I just don't know how at this point in time.
Yeah.
So I feel like there is a loving and kind way to do that and to give them resources for the best support. But I do like, I want to see more people just like, there's no reason to not
Mhm.
um, love and support people and who they want to marry. Like, there's no reason. But it's going to take some time to shift that. I mean, gay marriage became legal, yeah, in 2015, right?
Yeah, we're 10 years in.
10 years in. Like, that is a very recent development for a lot of people, unfortunately.
Well, and
So,
lawmakers are trying to push back on it now too. So it's like, unfortunately, we are going backwards with some of that. So I think,
yeah,
in the end, it's like you don't have to agree with our marriage, right? If you don't agree with queer marriage, that's okay. But it's the like, you're not allowed to be hateful towards it. I think
yeah,
it's like,
And
how
force
can
your
you be
views
an
on somebody else.
ally?
Yeah.
How can you be an ally without like, you can be an ally and not agree. You can just be kind and be a good human and push them to somebody else who can be a huge supporter and just be like all in for it, right? Because that's what you want. You want
mhm,
someone to be super supportive and super excited about your day. And so it's like, okay, I personally, I mean, I can, but like if I were a person, me personally, I'm very, yes, for queer weddings. But if I were somebody who wasn't comfortable with that, I think the idea of pushing them to somebody and say, hey, well, I don't support that, but here is somebody who will love and accept you, do it in a kind way instead of just like, oh, I
yeah,
don't like you, or not saying anything at all and being like, well, I'm just going to not put it and people can question. It's like, well, maybe you just be like, hey, I don't personally, in your FAQ, put it in your FAQ. I don't personally film queer weddings, but here are some amazing filmmakers in the community that do.
yeah,
I don't know, something like that to like still be loving and supportive without breaking your own. Because I know people have very religious ideas or whatever is holding them back from accepting this
mhm,
community. I also think it's silly not to accept it, but I don't want to send hate to somebody who, if that's really what they believe, like we are talking about, we need to be honest with ourselves and be loving of ourselves. So if that's truly their heart, then we need to be supportive of that as well, as long as there's no hate coming from it, right? No negativity. So if they're
yeah,
coming with a place of kindness of, hey, I just don't support it, and passing them on to somebody who does. I don't know. There's like that weird
yeah.
balance.
Yeah, I think, yeah, to your point with having that on the FAQ page and having those referrals readily available and like right there in the forefront, I think that is really good. I hope that in the years to come we don't keep going backwards and that the industry does shift because there is still a lot of homophobia in the wedding industry.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Even just in how, everything is referred to as brides, brides this, brides that, bride and groom. Just the yeah, heteronormative language used across everything. It's gonna take a while for that to shift, but we need to be doing better at it, especially as allies and as, vendors that like I feel like we do a pretty good job of it and we've changed our language. We're using partner one, partner two on our contracts instead of bride and groom. Same thing with our inquiry forms. I still need to put pronouns on my inquiry forms, especially just for, androgynous names and I don't know who I'm talking to. And then I get really excited that I have a queer inquiry and then it's a straight inquiry. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. But yeah, having pronouns on your inquiry forms, it's not even just for queer, non-binary people. It also just helps with any androgynous names. Like Alex can be male or female. There's so many, yeah, it just gives more perspective on who you're talking to before you get on the phone with them. It's not hard to say couples, partner. Yeah,
It's such an easy switch. It is such an
yeah,
easy switch just to be like, hey, partner one, partner two, instead of bridegroom. Like we should just get rid of that. I see it.
yeah,
Yeah, I see it everywhere. And I'm like, just get rid of it. It
yeah.
doesn't need to be there. What if it
Um,
had like a couple who is a bride and groom, maybe they don't want to be called bride. Maybe they don't want to be called
Oh
groom.
yeah.
Like even if it is a male and a female, maybe that's not the name they want.
Yeah, I've had brides even tell me that they don't like even using the word like husband. Like they don't use that term for their straight cis male partner. Like they just
Mhm.
prefer a different word. And I was like,
mhm.
that's totally okay. And it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me that I think that photographers have done a much better job at switching that. I find that it's a bit slower on the video side of things. And I don't know if that stems from it being so, male dominated. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just something that they're not thinking of. I, wouldn't be surprised if some of it is, and unfortunately intentional. But yeah, it is very heavily focused on terms like bride and groom in all of these other vendor discussions and,
Mhm.
videography podcasts.
So one of the recurring trends I see with male videographers is a lot of them do come from very religious backgrounds. And I don't know why that is, but it has just been a pretty reoccurring thing that I've noticed. And so I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And
Mm.
then I guess they just think that they come with a mentality of like, oh, it's all about the bride. It's all about the bride. A huge part of why I like shifting it to say partner or just like the wedding couple is also including in straight hetero couples, making the man feel included. Because I feel like it's kind of a bad look to just start off a wedding where it's just all about the bride. It's all about her. Like, is this a partnership? Like, it should
Mhm.
involve both of you. Um, so it also like shifting that language helps make men feel like they're more a part of those decisions in straight couples too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, like I did the same thing where I emailed both partners. Doesn't matter who inquired, if it was the man, woman, whoever, like doesn't matter. Whoever
Mhm.
inquired, it could even be like the mom. I always include both partners because I think it's important for both of them to be a part of the conversation. And even if one or the other is communicating more, then we should be including both because it's a
Yeah.
partnership. It is not just about who's paying the money and who's signing the contract. It's who are we telling the story about? And we need
Mhm.
to include both parties on that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's the little things, right? Like there are
Mhm.
things that our community as the wedding industry can do, and that's including things in the FAQ. It's changing wordage. It's very simple little things. We're not asking you to change how you feel about it. We're not asking you to put in the forefront of like, oh, I hate this type of people. It's just like be honest with yourself and be a part of the community and try to just lead with kindness. Like I think that we talked about our values in one of our earlier episodes. And in the end, it's just like be kind, be empathetic, and everything will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Some other simple words to change have been shifting from bridal party to wedding party. Again, it just
Yes.
includes everybody. And
Yeah.
it's not just about the bride. Same thing with like people will put bridal portraits on the timelines when it's meant to talk about, the romantic portraits. So I switched that to romantics, which I think is even more clear and more direct than just bridal portraits.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's your time to be romantic with each other.
Yeah, I like romantics. I use couples, but yeah, I think
Okay.
that that's even better. That sounds,
Yeah.
a little bit more intimate and emotional.
And like that's what we're about, all three of us here, about romantic moments, intentional, connected
Hmm.
moments. Um, yeah, I like I don't even remember who I heard romantics from the first time, but I was like, that's the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and if they can even just say portraits. Like you can keep it simple. If
Yeah.
you're like, well, I don't want it to be romantic, or like whatever.
It should be romantic. It's their wedding day. What are you talking about?
I
I
mean, I
know.
agree, but we have plenty of couples out there that don't like to show like affection as much,
Mhm.
True. True, true,
or
true.
maybe they're just super silly, Like we have tons of people that really just like, no, like, all of that stuff seems super cheesy or fake to us or whatever, and that's fine if it's not authentic to you. So yeah, like maybe
Mhm.
maybe you are more like goofy and silly and you just want to like play together for a few minutes on
Yeah.
your wedding day. So I like that too. Yeah, I think that there's plenty of room for growth and reevaluating all the words that we're using in our businesses.
And that's for all couples. It's not just queer couples, it's for every, like, even in my own wedding planning, as I was making my own timeline, I put wedding party. Like I did not put bridal party because that's just, I don't like it.
It's about
So
everyone. Yeah.
I think people are like, well, it doesn't go to me because I don't support queer or I'm not queer, whatever. It's literally for everyone. It's a way to make it inclusive for every single person that is getting married.
But yeah, I just want to thank you, Liz, for being open and transparent and honest with us and being willing to come on and tell your story to everyone on the podcast.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, my filming journey has just been such an experience over the last 10 years. Yeah, starting out super religious and just completely shifting, and the business I started out with is just totally different. It's just cool to see happen.
Yeah, we love being able to hear the stories and to be able to share with people that they're not alone. I think a lot of us in this world, especially in the industry that we work for ourselves, and we're often only one person for our business. It's nice to hear other stories and be able to say, oh, I went through that, or I can see how that would be difficult, and being able to empathize and understand. And it's nice to know that we're not alone. We're not the only ones that are going through these things, and that we can come out of it better and bigger. And these are the ways that we can. We appreciate everyone being here listening to Outside the Frame podcast. We will put some information for Liz and her company and all of her information down below. So if you want an amazing storyteller to film your wedding, she's available and she's fantastic. But I'll include all that in the show notes below, and we are excited to talk to some more people in the future. So come on back for more vulnerable, open conversations.